Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It has been just a little bit since I have visited you guys in the land of YouTube. I just wrapped up the school year about 2 weeks ago, and the month of, well, let's be honest, the months of April and May, if you are a classroom teacher, are so chaotic between end of the year things and then activities that my daughters were in and keeping up with things from Saddle Up for second grade. It was just a little chaotic, and I needed to just kind of take a step back. So I haven't been able to share my weekly videos with you guys, but now that summer's here, we're getting ready to kick that back off again. And today we are diving into the world of classroom decor with some practical tips to make your classroom not only look amazing, but also support students' learning. Now, in my 14 years of education, I have learned a thing or two about classroom decorations. My classroom style has definitely changed and evolved many times along the way. And the advice that I want to share with you today is my own thoughts. I'm definitely not looking to upset anyone. So I want you to take these tips and the things that I share and apply them to what works best for you in your classroom. So let's get started with some do's and don'ts for decorating your classroom. First, I want to talk about the influence of the classroom environment that you create and how it can influence children's cognition when it comes to learning. Research has shown that overly decorated classrooms can overwhelm our kids, specifically those with ADD, ADHD, and autism. They tend to struggle with filtering out what's necessary and what's not. And in a study that I recently read, it was done by two psychologists from the Journal of Experimental Child Psychology. That's a mouthful. But while we as teachers have good intentions when it comes to decorating, many classrooms end up being sensory rich in a way that could hamper children's learning rather than actually helping them. I once had a student who would randomly take things down from the walls of my classroom. He would tear down posters or directions or anchor charts. Once I learned that too much could affect their learning environment, it was a light bulb moment for me. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit that I hate blank wall space. I am the type that likes to have their walls covered. This is in my home life too. I can't stand a ton of blank space on the wall. And I used to think that if there was a blank spot on the wall, that I was wasting a valuable opportunity to place an anchor chart or a poster there. But the psychologists that I mentioned earlier, they conducted a study in 153 classrooms and found that students who were placed in an environment with minimal to moderate decorations benefited more than those who were placed in an environment with heavily decorated classrooms. Now, with social media and Pinterest, teachers can be flooded with Pinterest-worthy pictures of these perfectly curated classrooms. Now, I share my own in that space, but I've learned more about what I should and should not have in my classroom. Per research, a good rule of thumb would be to leave 20 to 40% of your classroom wall space blank. Let me tell you, this was so hard for me to do. I'm going to link down in the description of the video the article that I am referencing throughout this video. So let's chat about what your decor should and should not include. First, you need to pick a theme. During the school year, you spend the majority of the time inside your classroom, so make sure that you choose something that you love and brings you joy each day. But don't feel the pressure to have that perfectly decorated classroom. I promise you that your students are still going to learn if you have a blank wall or if you have a drawer cart that doesn't have perfectly curated labels on them. I wish I had a picture of my first classroom because I know it was bare compared to what I have now. But I do have some of my second year of teaching. Take a look at these. I cringe looking at these photos, but for that time it was okay. And the years in that classroom they were some of my very favorite. And are you surprised at all that my very first theme was Western? Check out my door display that my mom helped me make with her Cricut at the time. And that eventually became the name of my business. I was scraping by with what I had, and I printed things off of my computer in Microsoft Word for what I didn't have. Hence, how I got started on TPT. I kept this theme for 3 years before I changed over to zebra and then chevron. Oh my goodness. Here we are throwing it back to 2014, and I'm just shaking my head at so many things over here. Then I transitioned into my burlap and bright color phase. Now that we've taken a trip down memory lane, there's nothing wrong with having a classroom theme. If you like succulents, it's okay to have a beautiful succulent themed classroom. Like flamingos? Go for it. Are you into the popular 80s vibe that's making its comeback? Great. There are lots of ways to have a themed classroom without it being so overwhelming. I recommend going with a color scheme that matches your theme. For example, if you like flamingos, you could use decor with shades of pinks and greens and blues and incorporate flamingos and palm trees and things like that very subtly. When I returned to the classroom this last year, I went more with a color-based theme with hints of cow print. After being off for a few years, I was going through things that I had already purchased, and there was so much that I didn't want to use anymore because I had bought it because it related to a certain theme, such as bright chevron pocket charts that don't match what I currently have. When purchasing items for your classroom, such as plastic containers, book bins, pocket charts, I recommend going with a neutral color that can be used with everything, no matter what theme you decide to use in your classroom. Also, keep in mind the diverse needs of your classroom. While you might love something, more than likely you're going to have students who won't feel this way, which is why your decor needs to be age appropriate. Now, please don't come at me for this one, and know that I have made this mistake too. But when it comes to your decorations, it can be very tempting to buy a beautiful decor set that has cute teachery fonts. It might be a cute cursive that we are drawn into, or a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters in a cute way. You guys, I love fonts like this. I do. I won't even tell you how many fonts I have installed on my computer because you'd probably freak out. It's a very large number. But I have learned that these types of fonts, they're okay for personal use and for several things, but it's not best practice when it comes to classroom decor because they can be really hard for our students to read. Whatever you put on your walls needs to be clear and simple for students to read, especially in the primary grades where kids are still learning the foundations of reading. Let me tell you, I have learned this the hard way, even when it comes to creating resources. I have currently started to edit my guided math units because this past year, using them myself with my own classroom, I learned that so many of these cute fonts were hard for my kids to read. So let's take a look at some do's and don'ts when it comes to this type of thing. This past year, I wanted to incorporate cow print into my classroom, but that is a print that can be very overwhelming if it can be used too much. Instead of everything in my room being cow print like I would have done previously with my zebra room, I used bright colors that were pleasing to the eye, and I added pops of cow print in minimal spaces like I did here with my bulletin board border. I chose a bulletin board background that had texture and design, but wasn't overbearing and would pair well with anything that I layered on top of it. In this example, this is my number line. Notice that the cow print is at the top and the important information is on a white background and it's easy for kids to read. Whereas when I had my burlap theme or my zebra theme, my number posters had 10 frames on colored backgrounds. Realistically, this was hard for kids to read, especially from a distance across the room. Also, the font that I chose was thinner and was also hard for students to read from across the classroom. If you're using something with a pattern, the text needs to be on a solid background layered over the pattern. See the difference here and how much easier it is to read? Another thing I recently learned is color accessibility. Stay with me here, okay? Color accessibility refers to the color combinations that are easy for people with visual impairments or color blindness to distinguish. I have run Saddle Up for Second Grade going on 13 years. My brand colors since the beginning have been shades of turquoise and pinks and greens. From the very beginning, and earlier this year, I made a huge change to my brand, specifically the colors. And here's why. The colors that I was using, they were pretty, but they did not pass a color accessibility checker when put together. This same information applies to classroom decorations. My favorite color is turquoise, and I love white text. I 1,000% prefer white text when applicable to black text. For the last 12 years, I have made resources and create a brand built on turquoise, pinks, and greens using white text. And when I learned that people with visual impairments couldn't read it, guys, I was devastated. I had spent years building my business around these colors, and I love the way that they look together. But at the same time, I had to learn that, yes, it's my business. My business isn't necessarily always about me. It's about supporting and benefiting other teachers, which benefits the lives of students. So I made a big change. And in early 2023, I started redoing resources and adding black text to them so that they could benefit everyone. And you guys, you have no idea how hard this was for me to do. And then earlier this year in 2024, I rebranded my business for the first time in 13 years. I completely changed colors and chose colors that passed a color accessibility test when paired in different ways, but I also chose colors that I still liked and brought me joy. It has been a huge change and adjustment for me within Saddle Up for Second Grade, and I'm going to be honest, I'm still not used to it. But here is what you need to consider when thinking about your color scheme in classroom decor. Avoid white text on lighter backgrounds. You can see how these colors fail when paired together in an accessibility test. Now, it's okay with darker colors. When using light backgrounds, such as neutrals or bright colors, make sure that the text is dark. The point of me sharing this is that we can be tempted to use resources that might be a beautiful neutral palette, but they're going to have white text. Guys, it's beautiful. I love it. However, it does not benefit those students with visual impairments because they cannot read it. You're going to want to choose decorations that are colorful and fun, but also functional. And remember, fonts are super important. Make sure that any text is large, clear, and easy to read. Young learners need legible fonts to help them recognize and learn new words. Yes, it's important to expose them to different types of print because that's what they're going to see outside of the classroom. However, it isn't how they should be taught. So, what should we put on our walls? Educational items such as alphabet charts, number lines, a sound wall, things like that are super important, but also make sure that blank space is left for anchor charts to be displayed as they are created throughout the year. This past year, I started off with a focus wall on this whiteboard space. I ended up changing it shortly after the year started, and I took the focus wall down and I divided the board into thirds. This is where I would display the anchor charts that we made throughout the week. I had a section for reading, ELA, and math. But this also allowed me to use this space for other things that came up throughout the year. I could easily take down the anchor charts when I was doing a room transformation or something for a specific unit. Also, leave space for classroom management tools and schedules that are used for daily routines. These spaces help students manage their own learning and can be a huge time saver. Some examples might be classroom rules, voice level posters, nonverbal hand signals, a classroom schedule, student jobs, center rotation boards, growth mindset posters, and more. You also want to create a space to display student work. This helps them take ownership for their learning environment. And my favorite way to do this is using two-prong file folders. I cut them in half so that I can get 2 displays out of 1 folder. Throughout the year, I add work to their displays, such as artwork, directed drawings, writing projects, various things that we do throughout the year, and then I give it to them at the end of the year as a scrapbook. My daughter was in my class this past year, and so this is hers. You can also display work from the ceiling using string or yarn. Here I draped twine across the room and hung student work with clothespins. This is a great option if you don't have a ton of wall space and if your school will allow it. Overall, I think that there is a happy medium to be had. When it comes to decorating our classrooms, we want to choose functional and purpose over fun and cute. Don't overcrowd your walls. Too much stuff can be overwhelming. Stick to just the essentials. I promise your kids are still going to learn. Avoid distracting decor such as overly busy patterns or several mixed match patterns. And if using those, it's okay, but it should be avoided unless layered with a solid background and dark text is used. This can be more distracting than helpful. Your decor can still be simple and cute without causing a sensory overload. And remember, not every inch of your classroom needs to be decorated to make it welcoming. And trust me, I am telling that one to myself. If you agree that the goal is to choose meaningful decorations that bring you joy while enhancing student learning, I would love for you to give this video a big thumbs up to let me know that you found it helpful. I love taking a peek inside other classrooms. I have shared a link to my classroom tour in the description of this video. There you can see how my classroom this past year was set up, and you can find links to the decor that I use there. It's going to stay the same for this upcoming school year, but I do have some ideas for some changes that I want to make. I'd love to know what your classroom theme is. Leave me a comment below and let me know. Or if you're a part of the Saddle Up for Second Grade Teachers Facebook group, you can share a photo there so that we can see as well. Before I let you go, I wanted to also let you know that coming very, very soon is going to be the Saddle Up for Second Grade Inner Circle. It's going to be a 1st through 3rd grade math membership for teachers just like you, and I cannot wait to share it with you. You're going to want to join the wait list to be one of the first to be notified when the doors to the Inner Circle open. I'm going to drop the link in the description as well. If you've got questions, let me know, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.